If you were lazy, you wouldn't feel this guilty for resting. Lazy people don't lie awake at night thinking about everything they didn't do. They don't replay unfinished tasks in their head. They don't feel ashamed for being tired. If even simple things feel heavy, if getting started feels almost impossible, if motivation feels completely gone, this isn't laziness. This is emotional burnout. Most people who call themselves lazy are actually exhausted. Not just physically, emotionally. You still care. You still want to do better. You still think about what you should be doing, but your energy is gone. And when energy disappears, the mind looks for an explanation. So it turns inward. It blames the self. I must be lazy. But laziness doesn't hurt. Burnout does. Burnout comes with guilt, with shame, with the feeling that something is wrong with you. Lazy people feel relaxed doing nothing. Burned out people feel anxious doing nothing. That difference matters. Emotional burnout doesn't happen overnight. It builds slowly. It starts when you give more than you can recover from. When you keep showing up emotionally, even when you're empty. When you keep pushing because stopping feels unsafe. When rest feels undeserved. Over time, your nervous system stops feeling supported. And when that happens, it goes into survival mode. In survival mode, motivation disappears. Not because you don't care, but because your system is protecting you. When you're emotionally overwhelmed, your body chooses conservation. It shuts down non-essential energy. Creativity disappears. Focus disappears. Drive disappears. And all that's left is exhaustion. This is why burnout feels confusing. You want to do things, but you can't make yourself move. You sit there knowing what needs to be done and still feel frozen. That's not a character flaw. That's a nervous system in overload. One of the most misunderstood parts of burnout is rest. Because rest doesn't feel restful anymore. You sleep longer. You take time off. You cancel plans and still feel empty. That's because burnout isn't caused by lack of sleep. It's caused by emotional overload. Too much pressure. Too many expectations. Too much self-criticism. And not enough safety. Your body isn't just tired. It's overwhelmed. Burnout also creates guilt around doing nothing. The moment you slow down, a voice appears. You should be doing more. You're wasting time. Everyone else is handling life better than you. That voice creates stress. Stress drains even more energy. So you become more exhausted. And then more guilty. And the cycle repeats. This is why burnout feels like failure, even though it isn't. Motivation doesn't disappear because you're undisciplined. Motivation disappears when your system doesn't feel safe. Motivation comes from energy. And energy comes from regulation. When your nervous system is constantly pressured, it can't generate motivation. It can only protect itself. So it shuts down. Burnout often looks quiet. It doesn't always look like collapse. Sometimes it looks like procrastination. Avoiding small tasks. Scrolling without interest. Feeling numb. Feeling disconnected. Losing excitement for things you used to care about. These are not flaws. They are signals. signals that something inside you needs relief. Pressure makes burnout worse because pressure tells your nervous system that rest is dangerous, that slowing down is unacceptable, and an unsafe system cannot heal. Your body is not asking you to try harder. It's asking you to slow down safely, to remove judgment from rest, to reduce emotional load, to stop treating exhaustion like a failure. Recovery from burnout is slow. And that's normal. You don't rebuild trust with your nervous system overnight. You rebuild it through gentleness, through consistency, through allowing yourself to exist without pressure. You are not broken. You are not weak. You are not failing. You are burned out from carrying too much for too long. And that can be healed, not through force, but through understanding and patience and compassion. You don't need to prove anything today. Rest is not a reward. It's a requirement. And you're allowed to take it quietly, without guilt. Some people don't hurt you loudly. They don't yell. They don't insult you. They don't openly criticize you. They don't create dramatic scenes. They don't cross obvious boundaries. They don't give you a clear reason to walk away. And yet, after spending time with them, you feel tired. Not physically, emotionally. It's a quiet exhaustion, the kind that settles in slowly, the kind that's hard to explain and even harder to defend, because nothing terrible actually happened. You might replay the interaction in your mind. You go over the words, the pauses, the tone. You ask yourself if you misunderstood something, if you were too sensitive, if you expected too much. Maybe you tell yourself that this is just how relationships are, that closeness requires effort, that connection is supposed to be draining sometimes. But deep down, something feels off. The truth is, some people slowly drain you emotionally without ever doing anything obviously wrong. And that's what makes it confusing. There is no single moment you can point to, no clear argument, no betrayal, just a gradual loss of energy, a subtle heaviness that appears after every interaction. Emotional drain rarely comes from open conflict. Most of the time, it comes from imbalance. One person gives attention, the other receives it. One person listens deeply, the other speaks endlessly. One adapts, supports, regulates, the other stays exactly the same. At first, this imbalance feels small, almost unnoticeable. You might even feel useful, needed, important. But over time, your nervous system begins to recognize a pattern. You start to associate connection with effort, conversation with tension, presence with responsibility. Without realizing it, your body learns something dangerous, that being close to this person means being on guard. Emotionally draining people often take up a lot of emotional space. They talk about their stress, their worries, their disappointments. They explain their problems in detail. They revisit the same issues again and again. They unload without checking if you have the capacity to hold it. And you listen, because you care, because you're empathetic, because you know what it feels like to not be heard. But when it's your turn, the dynamic subtly shifts. The attention fades, the curiosity weakens, the energy changes. They may respond politely, they may offer quick advice, they may nod at the right moments. But something is missing. They're not really present. Your feelings become background noise, something acknowledged but not truly received. You leave the conversation feeling slightly smaller, less clear, less grounded, as if you gave something away without getting anything back. When this pattern repeats, your system adapts. You begin to share less. You soften your emotions. You simplify your experiences, not because you want to, but because it feels safer. You start protecting yourself in quiet ways. Another sign of emotional drain is unpredictability. You never know which version of them you'll encounter, warm and open, or distant and distracted, supportive one moment, irritable the next. So your body stays alert, always scanning, always adjusting, always preparing for a shift. This constant adjustment is exhausting because it requires effort without rest, care without reciprocity, presence without safety. This isn't connection. This is emotional labor. What makes emotional drain especially confusing is that nothing looks wrong on the surface. They might be polite, well-spoken, even charming. Others may enjoy their company, respect them, speak highly of them. So when you feel drained, you question yourself because no one else seems to notice, but your body notices. A tightness in your chest when you see their name appear on your phone. A quiet sigh after the conversation ends. A sense of relief when you finally have space to yourself. Your body keeps the score, even when your mind tries to explain it away. Emotionally draining people are not always cruel. They're not always manipulative. They're not always aware. Many of them are disconnected from their own inner world, from their emotions, from their needs, from their impact on others. Instead of regulating themselves, they unconsciously rely on others to do it for them. They borrow calm, they borrow stability, they borrow presence. And often, that person is you. Over time, this dynamic teaches you something subtle. That your role is to hold, to absorb, to stabilize. And slowly, you begin to disappear inside the relationship. You may notice that after spending time with them, you don't feel inspired, you don't feel understood, you don't feel closer. Well, you feel empty, as if something was taken, but nothing was returned. This emptiness can be confusing, because on the surface, the relationship still exists. You still talk, you still show up, you still try. But internally something feels depleted, and here's the part that matters most. Feeling drained is not a character flaw. It's not weakness. It's not emotional immaturity. It's information. Your nervous system is communicating with you. It's telling you that your emotional energy is being spent without being restored. That the cost of this connection is too high. You don't need to label these people as bad. You don't need to create conflict. You don't need to confront them aggressively. But you are allowed to notice how you feel. You are allowed to take that feeling seriously. Healthy connection doesn't require constant effort. It doesn't demand that you suppress yourself. It doesn't leave you emotionally confused. Real connection feels steady. It allows space for silence, for mutual care, for emotional safety. It gives energy back instead of quietly taking it away. Sometimes, protecting your peace means stepping back, not with anger, not with blame, but with clarity. Because your emotional energy is not infinite, and where you place it shapes how you feel about yourself. Real connection doesn't drain you, it grounds you. It leaves you calm.